And away we go.
Don't fuck with them hoes.
Sorry.
That's okay. Everyone simply just loves that intro. All right, horror fans, welcome once again. I am the horror miser Money G, and welcoming my guest once again back on the channel is my good friend Mark, the Movie Man. Mark, welcome back on to the channel.
It is an honor to be back, sir. Thank you for having me back.
Now, of course, I couldn't resist it. I had to bring you on because, everyone's been buzzing about the latest entry into the Exorcist franchise and sort of continuation of my Exorcist film series. So I did my review of Exorcist Believer. It's already up and running. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about how they feel about it. But obviously, Mark, what was your thoughts after you saw this film? What did you think about it?
Do you want my immediate thoughts, like when the credits are rolling, or do you want me how I calm down a little bit after the credits roll? Here's the thing. There's a lot of parts I really enjoyed about this film. It wasn't the direction, and it wasn't
just to let you know, anyone, I'm going to let you know, I almost forgot to warn you, we will be spoiling the film. So you have not seen The Exorcist, do not watch this. Go see The Exorcist, and then you can watch the replay. All right, go ahead, Mark.
It wasn't the direction that I didn't like. I didn't like the direction. I didn't like some of the story choices they made. Now, some of the ideas and concepts that they pepper throughout this film, I really appreciated. It just was so clumsily done that it was frustrating because they had potential of making something, I think, kind of unique and a solid entry into this franchise. And they took the road least traveled. But then again, with this director, I haven't really been impressed with his work since the first Halloween that he did with the Laurie Strode story. I enjoyed that one. But since then, I'm not really getting behind the direction he's taking this stuff. And this one definitely, I like Odom Jr. I thought he was fantastic in here. I loved Jewett. I thought she was great. But some of the writing of some of the sub characters, especially the daughter's friend's family, felt like they were just someone went to a trope cliche book and went, "Oh, we'll just do this and this character, and not give them anything at all." I mean, I guess that's what was frustrating for me. I still gave it two. I gave it 2.5, so I gave it a little bit above. But that was the frustrating, is because you could see the potential here, and when you get to the end of it, you're like, "That's it. That's what we get." That this kind of by the numbers by the end of it, to where you're just like, some of this stuff you didn't need, and I would have liked more of some other things, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, I went with our good friend Dawn, the diva of the spoiler room, a longtime friend of mine. She last minute joined me, and she got a kick out of my rant. And I'm like, I didn't completely hate it. It's watchable.
Oh yes.
It's just one of those things though where they really pull their punches in this film, where they just start to get like, all right, here we go, just like Exorcist type of vibe and the grittiness of the Exorcist, and then they pull back, and I'm just like, come on, man.
Yeah, I had the same reaction that you had. As I said in my review, it's not a bad horror film. It's not a bad Exorcist possession film. It's okay. There were some nice ideas that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride and all the other writers and whoever wrote and whoever had any input on the screenplay had. I liked the father aspect. I liked his character arc. I thought it was a nice idea. I believe that's where the believer title comes from, is his beliefs. After what happened in the beginning of the film, he no longer believes in God, and here now he has to have his faith restored in order to save his daughter. So I like that aspect of the film. And again, the main problem that I have is like, all right, you have these two girls, they're friends. How come the parents don't know about either one of them? If
Well,
if I had a if I had a daughter who had a friend, I would at least want to know her parents. It's just logically speaking.
if they had just met each other, I
Mm,
could see. But
yeah.
being a parent myself, now my boys are quite a bit older, and
Mm,
I'm not familiar. And now they're in their 20s, so I don't know who their all friends are anymore. None of my business. But when they were younger, we met their friends at least once. We
mhm,
met the friends' parents at least once before anybody was agreeing to just go over to someone's house. You know, you at least
mhm,
walk the kid to the door so you had a face to, a parent to the kid, even if you did like just exchange pleasantries. And here they hadn't done that at all. And that really surprised me with these two. And it's like you have the two girls, but and I didn't mind, but I'm just saying you have two characters, yet her friend feels like she's just an extra.
mhm,
In this, because her family is so cookie cutter, cliched
mhm.
believers, religious folks. I mean, so extreme. I'm like, come on, they don't have to be that extreme like they
Mm.
made them here. I mean, it just, so Catherine feels like she goes by the wayside a lot more than Angela. And I liked the Angela character. I love the story with her dad.
Mhm,
And like you said, having the two girls was interesting. Also, near the end, having to combine beliefs in order to defeat the demon was also interesting. I
mhm.
dug that. I thought that's where they were going to go with this. Where they had the Haitian medicine woman helping out. I'm like, okay, this is a cool idea.
Mhm.
But when you have the movie called The Exorcist, it'd be nice to have at least one exorcist in the film. I, I, the one guy that shows up isn't even an exorcist. He's just a priest who completely botches it and totally deserves to get his neck broke. Because I'm just like, wait, what? Where?
Oh man, oh man,
It,
it's like because I'm sitting here and like I said, the first part of the film, I'm saying okay, this is pretty good. I like
Mhm.
where the film is going with. We get to that part, and we see the girls, and I'm expecting to see a little bit more after we get Angela's introduction, see a little bit more of Catherine because we see her going to
Right.
school and we see her family, and it's totally different. But then it's like that's it. That's all we're going to get you know, I saw Mr. Trailer, but we should get more. I want to know more about Cam. I know about Angela. I know what happens, and we know what about Catherine's family. But like I said, the only thing we get to know is that they're religious, and
That's
the
it.
mother,
That's their one note.
and that's it. We don't get to know anything more. I don't know if Dayton Gordon Green didn't realize that he should at least put more aspects on Angela and Catherine, their friendship and their relationship, and Catherine's family. Because if you're going to have two people be possessed, then you want to make sure that the audience cares about them. So you want to at least build their characters up, her family dynamics. Because put it this way, you can still have it where the parents don't meet, but at least that you got something, you got at
Mhm.
least a good characterization between the two girls. My good friend
Y-
Jen's from June. I really think everyone
y-
watching
y-
TV.
Yeah, exactly, Jen. They pulled punches. I mean, no, I'm not. Here's the thing with these franchises, and we saw it with when they tried to remake I Spit on Your Grave
Hmm.
and do the sequels. I don't think legitimately can honestly make of films like those iconic shock horror films that we got back in the day now, just because standards like safety standards and moral code standards and it are so different nowadays than when those films were made. There was a lot less control, so they got away with a lot more
Mhm.
than what you can get away with now with your mainstream audience. I think, they allude to it here, but they kept pulling things back. I was like, okay, here we go. When she started, when Angela was strapped in and she was doing the cursing and that, I'm like, okay, here we go. But
Mhm.
we just saw Angela. We didn't really see much of Catherine being possessed and swearing. We needed both of these. I
Mhm.
think, I honestly think the director bit off more than they could chew by doing two two main characters being possessed. And again, I love the idea.
Mhm.
I think he did not have either the experience or what to be able to balance out between the two. So yeah, like you care, because when we get to the end and the demon goes, "You must choose one or the other," I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, go choose Catherine. I know nothing about her, and you'll probably save her from her family who
Uh,
is just painted
I
in a
know, because that would have made the scene very intense if had we gotten to know a little bit more about Catherine
right.
than we know about Angela. Because that would have actually, because if they would have slowed the process down to possession, where we get to see after they come back and they
Mhm.
start acting with their they start acting against their normal personalities. All of
Right,
a sudden, we see Catherine. She's at home, and all of a sudden, she's doing something that we know Catherine doesn't do. And then
right.
Angela does the same thing, and then it spreads, and then we finally might get to the point where she's in church. Because I almost thought in the scene in church, I almost thought she was masturbating, but it turned out that she wasn't masturbating. She was actually playing with her foot. But I actually thought, wow, that's great. They actually decided to go somewhere.
See, at first I thought that was too with the way her siblings were reacting. I thought uh Monty does rule. You are exactly right, Danny
Thanks, Dan.
Nightmare.
That's my good friend Danny
Uh
Nightmare from. Thanks, Dan.
he
You know you and Glory always rule. So thanks for stopping by. Have a great-
but I thought that's maybe what she was doing too. And I'm like, oh, they're actually going there now. Okay. And but not. She's like just acting weird and playing with her foot, like you said. She's just playing. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, come on.
I know, because
I'm,
that would have been perfect because you're in church. She's doing something that she really should not be doing at all, especially for a girl of her age. It's like, wow, that's something. I don't know if David Gordon Green was afraid to try, because I think he did not want to have this film be the same as the original film. But we all know with possession exorcist films, people who are possessed always act totally different than their normal personality. So there's nothing wrong with the little f bombs. Some sexual activity between the girls, but I think they didn't want. I think they were afraid to push the lever. No, when it comes to that, it's especially because I don't know why he didn't decide to push the lever. Push the lever.
yeah, yeah.
Not that I didn't have a problem with that, because I think he was just too afraid. He wanted to have the same, because you know seeing in 1973 and seeing Linda Blair at 12 years old throwing f bombs and masturbating. That was something else. You never saw that before in a film, and now it's just regular when it comes
not
to.
not not ju- not just masturbate, but with a cross as
I know,
well.
yeah,
I mean, you know, and in this one, and I'm not saying, I understand, and that's the risk you have with doing having a movie again where it's young girls being possessed, but at the same time, again, in the hands of a different director, you can imply some things that are happening without ever actually showing it
showing it. Uh-huh.
or doing it, but you could imply it a lot more. Like when I saw the trailer and they show Catherine and she's covered in red,
Hmm.
in the church, I'm like, oh, who'd she kill? Who'd she kill in the church or whatnot? Is that
I know.
blood?
That's why I thought she had killed someone. Yeah.
And I'm like, that would have been something. And then when you watch the film, you're like, oh, that's wine. I'm
Hmm.
like, that's a lame. At least don't have her kill a kid, fine. Have her kill some animal or something, or a cat, and have the red. I mean, we're talking demonic possession, and you want to break away the mold, that's fine, but there's certain aspects you have to convey to really get the idea across of what nastiness is involved,
Mhm.
and it's just as they get to that point, they pull back.
It's
And
like,
and
I don't want to push it. I'm too afraid. I'm too afraid.
and then well, I'm sure we'll get to it, but I will get to the Ellen Bernstein effect. But as far as with the little girls, I wanted to spend equal time with them more so than even the parents.
Mhm.
Could you imagine at the end if they had it to where the demon goes, you have to choose between them, and suddenly they both snap out of it just for a minute, lets
Mhm.
the demon lets them be them for a minute, and they realize what's going to happen, and so they're scared and they're like, no, choose me, don't choose her. They're trying to be sacrificed. That
Mhm.
would have made some drama and some tension
Oh yeah.
of them being close friends and say, "No, take me, not my friend," and then have the parent decide. I mean, that right there would have been far better than what we got, because yeah, and you knew what was coming too with the twist of the choice. You're like, "This is a demon." If you
Mhm.
actually had the title character here, an exorcist, they would have told you, "Nobody say nothing. Don't
Mhm.
decide on shit."
Oh,
And
this shit.
no, you know
He's a deceiver. He's a liar.
yeah, you know what I mean? But they didn't have that there. And I mean, I'm not even talking about, okay, having The Exorcist through the whole thing. Like most of the other films follow The Exorcist. That's why it's called The Exorcist. You follow
Mhm.
the impact of the possession on The Exorcist, the toll that trying to exorcise a demon takes on the exorcist as they try to figure out what the demon is and what it wants. We don't have that here. That's fine, but at least have a competent exorcist show up at the end going, yeah, no, don't nobody just choose nothing. Okay. No.
All right. So, do you think that some of the hate that is coming from this film is mainly due to David Gordon Green's and his involvement in his Halloween trilogy?
Uh, it might be a little bit residual because I know that last film left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth.
Mhm.
So I don't think necessarily they're hating it specifically because of him, but I think this was a movie that they already had that experience with the last, 2 Halloween films. Evil Dies Tonight, don't get me started on that. But, uh, I think this was a chance for him to maybe hit the reset button and show, "Okay, you know what? I did stumble a bit with those 2 films, but here's this one,
Mhm.
and we could do it." But he made similar fumbles that he made, I feel anyway, that he made with the last 2 Halloween films that he did, that then it's amplified. People already are kind of they're not really happy with his work, and now you
Mhm.
get something like this and you're like, it's more of the same. You're just like, oh well, so I think part of that is that, I mean, fans hold, and I was guilty of it when I was younger. I'm a little bit softer now, but you hold very true to some things that you love, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
And I don't mind new interpretations. I'm just looking at it from a film watching standpoint, and from my experience of watching so many films earlier, it just fumbles so much in this, to where if they would have taken some more chances, I think people would feel differently about this movie.
Mhm. Yeah, because when I first heard what Universal did, spending up to 400 million to get the to get the rights, I said, "Wow, wow, you really want to try? You really must have something good in plan because if no movie studio is going to spend that much money, especially on a franchise like The Exorcist, when you only have actually two decent films out of the whole franchise." You really You know, and not that I don't fault them because that's what movie studios do. It's all about IPs now. It's like it's all about IPs. And I know you want to take advantage of, trying to do something with a film like The Exorcist and see what you can do to have modern audience try to enjoy something that I would say because when I was watching Jen's reviews of the movie later on this early this morning, and I understand how she feels about The Exorcist because it's different from a person of my generation who actually saw it
Sure.
when it first came out, as opposed to someone when she was born because she's already seen a whole bunch of Exorcist possession movies. So when you actually see a film like The Exorcist, it's like, okay, yeah, that's nice, but I've seen all that stuff already. And it's kind of hard to try to duplicate something. Like I said, I wasn't expecting anything like the first film. I think that's one of the things, a lot of problems, their expectations. My expectation wasn't that high because it's like this, you're not going to duplicate that. No film ever will. You have some good horror movies that come close, like the Conjuring film series, Hereditary, Insidious, and Midsummer. Even and I might even say the Babadook, but that's kind of a different genre. But you're
Right.
just not going to duplicate what William Friedkin and William Peter Badley did in 1973 when this movie came out. And I just don't know. I guess because I guess sometimes when writers sit down and they write their scripts and they go their read throughs, I guess it sounds okay when it's just sitting there and you're not filming anything. You don't have any type of direction, so it sounds okay when they read through. But unfortunately, when you try to execute it, that's when like
Yeah, yeah. I the dialogue, especially in here near the end, for sure. I was like, wow. I'm like, really? I'm like almost predicting what they're gonna say. I'm like, you got. There's many ways they could take it, and that's the problem that you have with doing these certain IPs, as I mentioned before. One, you're not going to make it as extreme, probably as it was. Just because you won't be able to do some of the things just because of the way sensibilities are. But two, don't try to replicate that. Do your own. What there was no reason if you look at this film, and as you said, there's been so many exorcism possession films that borrowed from The Exorcist or
mhm.
completely ripped off from The Exorcist. If you're gonna do an Exorcist film, try and you're trying to bring something new to the table. It's not you're not gonna be able to have the same impact. That's the intention because it's been done, like you said. It's the same way with found footage films. When Blair Witch came out, oh my god, people were like, Blair Witch. Oh my, this is fake footage? What? And we're just like, yeah, no, come on. Um, but look at the formula it followed afterwards to now you get a found footage film, and you're like, okay, this is following the Blair Witch formula. Exorcist, you're like, okay, this is following the standard possession formula. Um, and yeah, I think if this film came out as its own possession film, because I saw The Pope's Exorcist, which was just like a few months ago, unfortunately. I
Mhm.
watched that. And that tried to do something a little different, but that also had, you know, beats from The Exorcist in it.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
there's only so much you can do with a
it's only so
possession
much
film.
you can do, but I still enjoyed the post episode. It's mainly because of the performance of Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
He carries the film with how he portrays the priest.
He's in a different film. I'm not sure what film he showed up for, but the one he was acting in is not what was on script, but more
uh,
power to him.
I know, yeah,
Uh,
but I actually like I said, but I had no problem with the Post Exorcist. I really did enjoy that film. I know, I just thought mainly because of his performances, and it's kind of a little different take on the possession, and I like the
right,
storyline. I like the fact that the demon's purpose was to actually possess the Pope's exorcist,
right.
which I thought was a pretty good story. I actually thought there was. I said I like the idea. Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing is this film, like the ideas, it's just and you're right about the stakes. But you mentioned Insidious before.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, let's talk about. I don't know if it's a current trend in some modern
Oh.
films because out of out of out of all the horror films I've seen this year, the one
Uh.
with the highest body count was Saw X. Okay, that actually had a body count.
Uh.
Insidious, The Red Door.
Mhm.
Watch that film. No body count.
Oh,
The
yeah.
only thing that's dead, it was already dead, a character that was killed way before we pick up in the story. Otherwise, there is no one who dies in Insidious: The Red Door. No, no one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the second horror film that I've seen where no one has died.
You're right. I mean, the only other one is April Fool's Day that I can
Mm,
remember, but there's a reason for that one. I'm not going to give away that film, but
yeah.
um uh in this one too, the only the only death we really get is we get the passing of the mom because of
The earthquake,
a
yeah, the earthquake in
earthquake.
Haiti. Mm,
Not even really, though they kind of imply it might be because of something evil, but it really was just an earthquake in Haiti that ended
mhm.
up killing her, unfortunately. And you know, no one else dies. Not even an animal dies in this film until the very end when the priest goes, all right, nope, I'm gonna do this now. I'm not an exorcist, but all right, let's go. And the demon,
Uh,
which is double powered, was like, yeah, no, turn that head, get out of here. Um,
this film. Yeah, my friend Simon from the UK said this film is not great. Actually, a lot of people, probably in the 80s and 90s, who were born to always say that The Exorcist 3 is their favorite sequel, and I understand that because that was it was more of a psychological horror
mhm.
film, not kind of the possession film. Unfortunately, Morgan Creek, when they actually looked at the script, we got to have an exorcist in here because this is an exorcist.
See, they did it. They did it. Why couldn't
We
Green
had
do
'cause
it?
we had to throw in an exorcist because this is an exorcist film, so we had to throw in an exorcist. So that's why the tone is a bit off, and especially in the third
Uh,
act. And then the father, I think it's Father Lamont of all people, he comes in, but we really don't know it because he really doesn't get that much screen time until he actually shows up in the third act.
mhm. See,
Hey, what's up?
and I'm with Rob's nightmares. It's weird that they called this Believer because it's implying one, you're going to see an exorcist in here,
Mm,
and two, you're going to see the believer. The believers in this film are actually the family who, the one note family we get. They're at least more of the believers or the nurse that shows up, than the father. It should be like unbeliever or something. Now, the supposedly this is going to be a trilogy, and the second one's going to be called Deceiver, and I'm like, this should have been Deceiver. This one should have been called Deceiver. And then the next one called Believer
mm,
because of the events that happened here, right?
mm,
And I don't know because it's just such a mixed bag with because I love the talent in this movie.
mhm,
I like the production design. Like I said, I loved the idea of multiple religions having to come together with similar ceremonies to exorcise the demon. Love that idea.
oh yeah,
Wish
that
it
was great.
had been executed
Oh yeah,
so
like
much more.
I said, wow, this is nice. We get to actually see different religions. It's like this. I think that was a good idea instead of just seeing the typical Catholic priest
Right.
or a flock priest.
Well, they freaking hit you in the face throughout the movie about, well, all these religions have their own ceremonies. It's brought up at least 2 or 3 other times in either
Mm,
passing conversation or what that there's other religions that have exorcism ceremonies or exorcism, practices, and that's alluded to. But when we finally get to them being able to do this, it's done so clumsily, and
mm.
then we get this like random scene of the girls in like the demon world, which served no purpose whatsoever. I'm like, we know they're we know they're possessed. We know they're possessed. You don't have to take me into demon realm and show the little girl being pulled by some demon thing. We know there's a demon. We know We don't need to see that.
Simon, you're killing me. Simon saying on the exorcism of the you're killing me, Simon.
Nice.
That's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what I guess they thought it was supposed to be spooky or scary. But speaking of Insidious, it seems like now every filmmaker every now and again is pulling the jump scare that the Insidious did,
Oh.
which was very effective. Because there's one scene in the film where she's talking to her father, and next thing you know,
Mhm.
we see the demon whatchamacallit
Right.
behind Lizzie Odom Jones.
Mhm.
I said, which I thought was it would have been effective. I ain't seen the trailer. Unfortunately, saw the trailer again, but I saw in the trailer. I says, "Wow, they're doing the Insidious jump scare."
Yeah, Conjuring did the same thing with The
Mm,
Nun, which this Conjuring 2 is still my favorite of that series. I think that was the best way, and
mm.
that was the best handling of The Nun. Even better than The Nun 2, which was still better than the first one because The Nun 2 didn't put me to sleep like the first one did. Um, literally, the first one, I've never fallen asleep in a theater before until I saw the
Ooh,
first Nun film, and that nearly was like, I was like, huh, is something gonna happen?
something could happen.
Uh, oh, look, he's in a coffin ringing a bell again. Now, oh my, he's still ringing the bell. You know, so, so the Exorcist Believer at least moved, at least had stuff happening.
Mm,
But as far as the narrative goes and the mythology of the demonic possession in that, it's like they Googled it. It's like they went to keywords and go, oh, we'll make the script out of
yeah,
keywords.
you would think they actually would have actually talked to probably some I can't get the word out.
Theologians, yeah.
Some theologians, or actually talk to some Catholic priest. Get your shit
Mhm.
together. Make sure you have your facts straight when it comes to you know if you're going to do a movie like that, try to don't Google it. Actually speak to the experts. If you're going to try to do that.
Well, that's why I got excited when they had the Haitian medicine
Mm,
woman.
yeah.
That character, she was fascinating.
Oh yeah.
We're with her for like 4 minutes total. Yeah, and I'm like, that's an interesting character. There's your new Exorcist. If you want to put a spin on this, on the
Hmm.
Exorcist believer, have her be an actual, like, someone who has done the exorcisms before. And it's kind of alluded to, but
Hmm.
not done well.
I know, because when I was watching Jen and Christian's reviews, and they talked about the mist scene that comes up during part of the exorcism, it kind of reminded me of the Exorcist TV show because
Ah,
at at one point in the Exorcist TV show when the twist happens,
mhm.
and now all of a sudden they have this type of mixture in the bowl, and if they want to possess you, they lift the bowl up and they put some fire on it, and some mist comes out of it, and the demon possesses you. And that kind of reminded me of that. So
Mm.
I don't know if David Gordon Green was trying to copy stuff that was in the Exorcist TV show. So I thought that was a bit interesting.
No, it was, like I said, I loved that whole ceremony, but
Mm,
then they like abandon it like halfway through the thing with doing the exorcism where she's doing her thing with the pouring of the water
mhm,
and dump this water off site and all of this. I was like, this is amazing. This is fascinating. I'm digging this. This is cool.
mhm,
Something different we have not seen in an Exorcist series before is a different performance of a different
mhm.
exorcism ceremony, but it gets abandoned. It's like, nope, nope. The Christians show up again and like, okay, now we're doing that. And I'm like, come on, come on,
Uh,
man.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, because it amazes me sometimes when because I was watching Cody Leach in his
mm,
review, and he says that you really shouldn't try to do any type of sequels to a film like The Exorcist. It's
mhm,
particularly one and done film, and I would agree with him at some point at the time because when you saw films like this, you saw films like Jaws. Those were typically one and done films because at the time really didn't have any sequels come out, especially during the 70s. You had Rocky 2, you had The French Connection 2, and of course, obviously, you had The Godfather 2. If I'm not mistaken, because that's all the Godfathers were the first and second were based on the novel that Mario
Right.
Puzo wrote.
Yep.
Yeah.
hmm
So I kind of get that. So I wasn't surprised when the Godfather 2 came out. But I think Warner Brothers, once Star Wars was released, and all of a sudden people said we got to have sequels to these movies. So Warner Brothers decided to say, you know what, let's do a sequel to The Exorcist.
Well, and that's the thing is, uh, people don't realize the concept of an actual sequel
hmm
is new fairly. It's only, I mean, not really new, 40 years now. I feel old, but 40 years old ish or so, an actual sequel. That's why, like the original trilogies we had, like the Indiana Jones trilogy, Back to the Future trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, those were unique, or even the Superman films. Those were unique because, like you said, back then when we watched a film, we weren't thinking IPs or trilogy. We didn't have the internet saying, "Hey, there's going to be 3 more of these." We figured that was one and done. Like
Yeah.
that we're not going to get another one. So then, like a year after Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, comes out, all of a sudden, like it's announced, like, "Oh, hey, Temple of Doom." You're like, "Oh man, we're going to get another one." I didn't expect that at all because those films were written as such to be boom end. I mean, like you said, Exorcist. Priest gets shoved down the steps, boom, done, right? Which I like that ending, the original theatrical ending, better than the director's ending. But boom, but done. You're done. Okay. He had the demon in him, he killed himself, boom, demon gone. Okay, cool. And no one would think of, man, we gotta see another Exorcist. No, you don't.
Nobody was thinking about that. Everyone was still shocked about seeing the first one. And my friend Simon, I think The Exorcist was so shocking because it was made during the 70s when horror was more hammer horror, and the impact of the movie shocked the audience, seeing a young girl swearing it. Yeah, because I've said that plenty of times before. Not just hammer horror, because hammer horror was coming toward the end, right around 71, 72. I think once movies in the U.S. were becoming more frequent, and hammer horror was still stuck in the Gothic age, and that's the reason why. So that's the reason why they finally released a movie was not based in the 1800s or 1600s Victorian age. Victorian age, when hammer films were always about that age. They decided to do a little bit modern age with Dracula AD 1972. So yeah, well, not just hammer horror, but just basic horror films that were coming out, especially during America.
Well,
You had Willard, you had I Spit in Your Grave, you had The Hills Have Eyes, you had The Last House on the Left, you had Frogs, all these horror movies that were coming out during the 70s. I mean, even the black exploitation horror films like Blackula, Blankenstein.
oh yeah, Blackula, man, I love Blackula. Blackula is awesome. Blackenstein, yeah, the black exploitation horror you had, but don't forget, dug within here is also you had Texas Chainsaw Massacre. 70s was a really interesting time for horror
Yeah.
because you had films that were actually testing the tolerance of the audiences, but those films were actually getting mainstream. Some of those films used to be, when they were usually just produced lower budget to the grindhouse theater. That's where grindhouse thoughts came from it. That was kind of regulated. It wasn't really mainstream promoted by bigger studios. And then you get horror like The Exorcist, produced by an actual big name studio with some money behind the marketing and the budget. And now you're making that extreme horror, but with a budget, being put into mainstream theaters. So that's why people were shocked. I mean, it's similar to what you had when Psycho showed up. No one really had done a horror film quite like Psycho
Yeah.
when it came out. Exorcist, No one had really done horror like that. And then you got Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know,
Yeah.
you got a series of Last House on the Left. You got these series of films that were being put into mainstream theaters. And one, the MPAA is going, whoa, we got to take a closer look at the
what you guys are doing here. Yeah, because I said, because I've always talked about this, and I said that it seems like during the 70s, it seemed like movie directors are trying to who can shock the audience more. Okay, well, I'm going to come up with I Spin in Your Grave. Well, yeah, well, I'm going to come up with Last House on Your Left. Nope, I'm going to come up with this. I'm going to come up with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it seemed like they all wanted to outshock the audience with what I call not real horror films, but ultra violent horror
Mhm.
films.
Well, and I'm not sure if it was a competition just to see who could shock who.
Mm,
I think it's more of the fact of they were filmmakers who were not holding back in the stories they wanted to tell.
hmm
And they were telling stuff that, the gloves were off, so to speak. Once you got one popular, especially, Time Lord asked a good question about would The Exorcist have been shocking had it been made in the 80s? I think it would have, only because the reason the 80s horror films were like what they were is because they were influenced by Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist. They were influenced by those 70s horror films. And that's why 80s horror was the way it was, is because people were looking at that going, oh man, I could do that.
Yeah,
No.
no, yeah, yeah. It. I think if the Exorcist would have came out in the 80s, I think it would have had probably the same cultural impact that it did when it came out during the 70s. Because again, you never seen a horror movie like that before. I think if that movie came out in the 80s, you probably would have seen even more
Right.
possession, exorcist
Mhm.
horror films. You probably would have seen me more of that than you saw of slasher films.
Yeah, suddenly that would have been the new hot item. And so I think, yeah, it's an influential film that, you know, to do a sequel like it, you don't have to. That's the thing about them doing these IPs, is
Mhm.
that if you do a little tailoring, you can make this film its own, and you'll probably have a better response than trying to make it fit within the franchise or the IP of previous horror films.
Mhm.
There was nothing in this film outside of bringing Ellen Bernstein back. There is nothing in this film that says, hey, this is an Exorcist. This belongs with the Exorcist franchise. There's nothing in here except for bringing her back. And bringing her back, they still do her dirty. Not as dirty as they do My Girl in Texas Chainsaw, the Netflix film.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, that just don't get me
Oh,
started on that.
oh
But
man.
what they did with her character, and how they did her dirty, how they dispatched the final girl from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in that Netflix movie. Here they almost did it with Ellen, with the Chris McNeil character. I was like, oh, really? We're gonna do this again? Now they did it. They kind of did, but at least they did, like, spoilers, folks. This is spoilers. She at least didn't die. Okay, thank God she didn't.
Yes, I was about to bring up the Ellen Bernstein fact. Now, as far as what I thought about it, the inclusion of bringing her in made sense story wise. When you
Mhm,
have a person, especially when Victor's character find doesn't know
mhm,
what he needs to do. He's got to put his daughter into a psych ward, and he doesn't know what to do because the doctors don't know how to treat her. So he goes to Ann Dowd's character. He ever seen anything like this? And she eventually shows him Chris McNeil's book. So
right.
he reads the book and says, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to her. So it made sense story wise to bring her in. I also like the fact that she doesn't dominate the film. This is not about her. This is about them. All she is just a catalyst to say, okay, this is an Exorcist film. Here's Chris McNeil. You know, I know, like I said, for me, it made sense story. They wasn't sticking her in because she's Chris McNeil and she's Ellen Burstyn and this is an Exorcist film, so we got to have her. Now, obviously, the way to use her is kind of weak, and they could have not actually included her in, and he could have just actually just seen the videos, read the book, and that would have been it. I think some people would have preferred to see that than to actually see Ellen Bernstein come in.
No, if you're doing Ellen Bernstein,
Mm.
do that character, the Chris McNeil, properly, because they already alluded. At least now Chris can apply for disabled. Wow. Wow. Yes, you're absolutely right. At least she yeah, and she's got her seeing eye daughter now, so we're all good. Sorry. But you know, the way I figured that they could have really did her, could you imagine where he visits her, consults with her. She says she's been around the world. She's consulted with, different religions for exorcists. Again, they're dropping the idea of multiple religions. She's the only one the Vatican trusts with exorcisms and being there. Could you imagine that? Okay, you have that conversation. He's like, "Will you help me?" She's like, "Sorry, I can't." He gives his contact information to her, and that's the most we see of her till the end, where they're trying to do the exorcism with the daughters. And just when you get to where you think it's going to fail, Chris McNeil comes in and helps. With the power of the price compel. That would have been better to do her character, but she goes up. She makes the dumbest decision. I'm like, did you not learn from all your experiences not to go up the stairs and go into the room by yourself with the possessed little girl? Call the others up.
I kind of felt that's probably not the best idea for her to do that.
No, I'm just like, wait, did you learn nothing? You wrote a book on this. You wrote, chapter 4 said, "Don't go in the room with the possessed girl alone." That was the title of one of your chapters. Not really, but and she does that.
Yeah. So, like I said before, I really didn't have a problem of her being in the film, because obviously when it was announced she was going to be in the film, and I think, from what I understand, the money that they gave her, she gave it to a charity that she really loves.
I love that story that she first wasn't going to do it, and then they doubled her salary. And then she's like, "Okay, fine." And then she took her salary and donated it for a scholarship to this to her college, an acting scholarship, which is an amazing story. That's more interesting.
That was more interesting. Yeah, because the only thing she does now, she plays Stabler's mom on Law and Order, organized crime.
And that's fine. It's just that these legacy sequels, they feel like they can, they're going to bring in these characters to bring in the fans, but they don't seem to know how to handle them properly. This isn't the first legacy. I mean, look at what happened with Halloween Ends. Laurie Strode is like tacked on it's like an appendix to the story. Like, oh wait, we've got to have a final conflict between Laurie and the Shape. We haven't seen her like most of the movie, but this is a Halloween movie and it's supposed to be Halloween Ends. Oh, we better have her. So he just shows up. He's like, "Hey, you got any casserole for me?" I mean, that movie too, it was like it didn't know after that first Halloween how to handle the legacy characters. And in here we're seeing it again. Texas Chainsaw, same thing. We see them doing these legacy films, but it's like the folks making it and writing it and producing it either didn't pay attention to those characters or just feel like, we'll just throw them in there and then just, that's good enough. We don't really have to do a whole lot with them. It's literally like Ice Cube showing up in Triple X, the third Triple X film.
Yeah, no, you bring Xander Cage back in when you supposedly killed him off in the second film, but he comes back and then we see Ice Cube with that little cameo.
Which was ruined in the trailer.
Yeah, no, it's like, why you kidding with ruining something in the trailer? Look, it would have been nice not to see Ice Cube. It would have been nice to see him, come in. He makes a little appearance. Everyone would have probably said, "Oh wow, that's nice, Ice Cube, to do a little nice little cameo into it." But no, once again, trailers ruin it.
They literally show his only scene in the film, just about.
See, now I know why my friend Emma from Spooky Astronauts doesn't watch trailers anymore.
No, they it's like, well, between trailers and news on the internet, it's like it takes it away. It takes away a little bit of edge. If you're trying to be in the know, with films and keep people up to date and keep your followers up to date, you
Mhm,
end up ruining it for yourself. It was like I always bring up the classic example, Star Trek Into the Darkness.
mhm.
Hey, we cast Benedict Cumberbatch as a villain, but not the villain you think it is. And everybody's like, yeah, he's going to be Khan. And
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
no, 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 he's not. He's called this. No, he's going to be Khan.
yeah.
You're watching the movie and you're like, no, this is his name. And you're like, no,
No,
he's going
he's
to be
going to be
Khan.
Khan.
And then he turns around and goes, my name is Khan. And you're just like,
See, and what makes it so insulting about that is that then you have Spock yelling Khan.
yeah, it made no sense.
Like,
And
you
and then it's
guys
just like,
can't come up with anything. We're going to rip off William Shatner's favorite lines in the Star Trek lore. He's going to rip that off and have Spock screaming.
that's my point. Is they do these either sequels or remakes or whatnot, but it's like they think they're being creative, but they're not. And even in here, the very end, again, spoilers, folks. The very end, throughout this, when we get to meet Chris McNeil, she drops the line, oh yeah, my daughter disowned me after all this. She doesn't even want to talk to me. I don't know what she's doing. I've not met with her for, decades now. We haven't talked. Oh, I'll never see Regan again. You're like, oh, so they got Blair back for a cameo. When's she showing up? Because it's gonna happen.
Now,
And you
I actually said that to several people. I told them, I
get,
says, I even told my wife Kelly, I said, I think if they're going to use Linda Blair in the movie, it's probably going to be at the final scene. Uh, it's going to be a final scene in the film. If she does show up in the film, you have her come in the final scene. I don't know what it's going to be like, but she's going to eventually show up. It's going to be at the end of the movie. And as far as I'm concerned, I really didn't have a problem with that. I actually thought it was a nice. I thought it was a nice touch seeing those two back together again. Obviously she's going to stay with her mother for a while. I thought it was a nice touching scene. I thought it was a nice way to end the scene. So I had no problem with her showing up at the end.
No, and I didn't either. I didn't mind that.
Mhm.
But the thing is, the way it's all directed and cut, it's supposed to
Mm.
be like a surprise, and it's like, no, we knew this was coming. But I did like seeing that moment, where they were together. That was a great moment. That was one of my favorite parts of this film, even though I saw it coming,
Mhm.
and
God, no.
God,
Simon, you're killing it tonight.
you're not kidding, man. I those films are, yeah.
Uh, oh man, yeah. Yeah, but that was interesting, from one of the more popular characters from Star Trek lore, and probably one of Raquel Montalban's favorite lines, other than Mr. Rourke.
Yeah, exactly. So getting Regan back, getting Bernstein back, Chris McNeil, I liked that. I just wish they would have used Chris and wrote a better part for her. But at least she was able to take the money and donate it for a good cause.
Mhm, yeah, yeah. Maybe that's the reason why they spent the $400 million to have to pay for Linda Blair and other person's house.
400 million part of that was Linda. That makes no sense with me in today's world where you can do partnerships and such, where we see a lot of studios partnering up. I mean, cripes, Sony and Marvel, for crying out loud, MCU and Disney, pairing up to do the Spider-Man movies. I don't understand why they felt the need to buy $400 million for the exclusive rights to everything The Exorcist,
Mhm.
uh, without first doing an agreement movie first and seeing how that plays out before you dump in the 400 million, say, yeah, we'll take ownership. It'd be like, I would have been first like, all right, we'll partner with you. We'll split the funds. So and so, if the film does well, maybe we'll buy all the rights for you for 400 million.
Mhm.
It was such a gamble that is not gonna. I honestly don't think is gonna
Yeah,
pay
because
off.
unfortunately, the film only made like I think only
And-
27
yeah,
27 million.
27 million.
27 million here in the States and only made 45 million worldwide, which is way below expectations about what they thought was going to make. So I really don't know what they're going to do now. I think it's obvious because I don't know where they're going to go with, because we have Deceiver coming up in 2025, and I don't know where that's really going to take place. Is it still going to focus on Vincent and Angela, or are they just going to have some little part in the film, or are they going to just have new characters?
Well, if you look at what the budget is, and this is why, Monty, we are in another horror renaissance where the last 5 years we've gotten more horror films released than in the previous 10 years before that.
Oh yeah.
We're in a horror renaissance because all these studios have these films that have cost them way too much money. The comic book films and that. So they make these films. The Exorcist Believer, I believe, will get a trilogy done, because this film only cost them $30 million.
Yeah.
And it made 27 some million, 45 worldwide. If it makes enough money over the week before Taylor Swift kills everything at the box office,
I'll give them credit. They made the right decision.
They did. This film would have
made nothing.
It would have been the first movie to make a negative box office at the theater on a wide release opening weekend, because it go against Swiftie. Linda Blair kills Corey, she'll move on right in a bucket baking.
Oh man!
And then she'll team up with Laurie Strode, and they'll come up with a baking show, and it'll be fantastic. So.
Yeah, because it like I said before, it's an okay movie. It's not a bad movie. I mean, I think there are worse movies that I saw so far this year. This is not Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. This is not Devereaux. This is not The Flood. And there's some other couple. And this is not Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Oh, God. Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Woo.
Oh boy.
Yeah. What's funny is if you drop The Exorcist off of the front of this and just turn this into Believer, I think you get a better reception. Like I said, I think trying to tie it specifically to the IP is what ultimately hurt this film, because by doing so, there's all this expectation baggage, either conscious or subconscious, that gets carried over with it. It's the same thing with the Halloween films. You have so much there that if you're trying, I think if I was the filmmaker, I would rather have people going, "Oh, this is trying to borrow from The Exorcist." I'd rather have people saying that than, this sucks for an Exorcist.
I think I would have that praise and say, well, at least they're comparing my film to The Exorcist.
Right? But
and we get Jason Voorhees back. Well, the TV show's coming.
the TV show is coming. Tough to say. The power of Ellen Burstyn. I would have loved that. I would have loved to see her come back and do that. I really would have.
That would have been interesting to see her actually do an exorcism.
Right? I mean, I and if you're gonna do what happened to her, fine, have her do the exorcism and suffer the same fate as Father Karras. Do that. That there's your like reason for bringing her back outside of, oh hey, she's gonna go blind now. Yeah, it's one of those films where it's watchable. It's not completely horrible. Just ignore the fact that it's got The Exorcist on the front of it.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what David Gordon Green and the rest of the writers, him and Danny McBride and the rest of the writers, going to try to come up with Deceiver. I will say this: if this film fails, I don't know what Universal is going to do with him. I don't know if Hollywood will ever trust him to make any more movies.
Well, they even. Sorry, didn't mean to step on you there, sir. I saw an interview recently where they talked about he wasn't sure if he was going to, even though he's slated to do Deceiver, he's
Mhm.
not sure if he's going to come back for
Mhm.
that. I mean,
Mhm.
it's in pre-production, but he's actually unsure if he's going to be coming back for that.
Mhm. That's
You know,
interesting.
now, stay with me. What I would have loved them to see them do for the Halloween film, and I
Mhm.
came up with this, this when they were going to put Laurie Strode, and at that same year, Dark Fate came out, which was another like, oh my god, okay. Anyway, Dark Fate really ticked me off as well. The last Terminator film. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, here's your crossover event. You get Laurie Strode, you get Linda Hamilton, right? You got Laurie Strode who thinks the shape is done. You've got Linda Hamilton who you got Sarah Connor who thinks the Terminator's still out there. All of a sudden, the shape shows back up in Haddonfield and starts killing people. Laurie
Mhm.
Strode goes after him, but she can't seem to kill him. Why? Because the shape is actually the Terminator. And so you have Linda Hamilton come back and she takes on, or Laurie Strode take on the Terminator shape in Haddonfield.
Well, you're not the first
I
one who said that. Yeah,
I
a lot of people were pissed off about that.
I nearly did. I am with you.
Mm.
I am with you. I nearly walked out of the theater in that first 10 minutes of that movie. I'm
Mhm.
like, I think I said out loud, "You've got to be kidding me."
Mhm. I'm like,
I'm,
"What?" Because I'm looking at them like, "What the hell?
I'm like,
You
we,
did that?" Well, I said, "Well, first of all," I said, "Wow, that took balls to do that."
so so yeah, these legacy sequels,
Mhm.
all more times than not all of them, but more times than not, these remakes or legacy sequels feel like they're a little more mean spirited, or they're doing this to take these beloved characters and doing them dirty for the shock value because they think, oh, that's going to get people, when all it does is tick people off.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know.
you
Thank
know.
you, Time Lord. There is only 2 Terminator films, 1 and 2. 2 is done. Storyline. It is unwritten. Black asphalt.
I did like Terminator 3 Rise. I did like Terminator 3 Rise of Machines. I did like that.
More power to you, Monty. More power to you, Horror Miser. I raise my glass. I know a number of people who like Terminator 3. Terminator 2 was one of my milestone, like fixed point in time films that had such an influence on me that
Mhm.
when they came out with 3, it hurt. It hurt to watch.
All right. All right, Mark. I think we've done enough talking about
Yeah.
Exorcist Believer.
Well, I think if anything we've conveyed, didn't hate the film.
No.
It's a messy film. It is clumsily done.
Mhm.
And there was potential here for something really cool.
Mhm.
And I think in the hands of a different director, you could have gotten that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and like I said before, we really don't know where Deceiver's going to go, but we'll just have to wait and see.
It's not like we're not going to go see it. Us horror fans are
And we're
gluttons
going
for
to see it.
punishment.
Yeah.
We're gluttons for punishment. I mean, we're like, oh, I'm not going to go. And then you're sitting there watching the Firestarter remake going, man, this should be on streaming. And you're looking at your phone going, oh, it is on streaming. I could have stayed home. Probably would have looked better than this.
Oh man, don't get me started with that. Oh man, don't get me started with Firestarter.
Oh man, that film, man. I watched it and I go, I paid money for this. Shit.
Ooh man, I feel
Oh.
sorry for you.
Oh.
All right, not to copy your style, but I know what do you have coming up on the spoiler room, and what's coming up for you on your channel?
Oh, well, yeah, on Special Mark Productions, we're doing a live stream later tonight, and the recording will be on later. This month in the spoiler room, we're doing He's Not Loki month, where we're covering 4 Tom Hiddleston films where he's not playing Loki. Last week we did High Rise. This week we're looking at I Saw the Light, where he played Hank Williams Sr., which I didn't even know he did.
Neither did I.
He's in it's a biopic about Hank Williams Sr.
Mhm.
And Elizabeth Olsen is in it playing his wife. So
Ooh,
you've got Scarlet Witch and Loki
I know.
together. it's a little wild. Plus, seeing Tom Hiddleston with a Southern drawl is something you have to watch because you're like, my mind's really
That's weird.
so we've got that coming up. I've got a few reviews coming up of some screeners. I'm really busy getting ready for the Sawdust City Fright Fest, which is a horror film festival in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which I'll be doing the emceeing for. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, Friday we're showing a short film before they're showing of Friday the 13th Part 2 because it's Friday the 13th. So the theater's showing Friday the 13th Part 2. And then Saturday we've got a couple of indie features that were Midwest made and 2 blocks of horror shorts, all indie stuff. So preparing for that, but
yeah. Oh, by the way, to give a nice little plug to my good friend Cecil Laird of the Horror Show. Have you seen Dylan's New Nightmare?
No, I have not yet.
If you go to the Horror Show, I think it's on YouTube. You check out his film called Dylan's New Nightmare. It's a semi sequel. It's a fan sequel to Wes Craven's Nightmare. He did a pretty good job on it. So if you get a chance to check that out, and give my friend Cecil Laird a plug. They did a pretty good job.
I will definitely check that out. If people are interested, I've got things I watched recently. I watched an interesting film called Uncanny. It's not out yet, but I did watch a film called Mary Had a Little Lamb. It's one of two. It's one of 2 nursery rhyme horror films being brought to you by Uncorked Entertainment. And Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah, I got a review of that up on my website.
Is that also 3 Blind Mice too?
Yep, 3 Blind Mice. I got the screener for that too.
My friend Leo from Greek Legion of Doom. He got because I know there's a lot of the nursery rhymes in the public domain, and he's the same guy that did Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So he did that. He did 3 Blind Mice. I think there's still waiting for Goldilocks and the 3 Bears to come out. I think he did that too.
They're doing that one. We're waiting for the Mean One to come out, which is the horror film based off of the Grinch.
Yeah.
And so you've got all of these public domain things and indie horrors jumping on them.
There's supposed to be a Bambi one too.
Yeah, I heard about the Bambi one. So there's that one. So it's gonna be interesting to see what comes out in the indie film. So
all right, I just put up my review of the Scream meets Back to the Future Totally Killer.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of good things about that. I haven't watched that one, but we'll have to.
Let's say it was okay. I guess because my sense of humor is different than most people's.
Sure.
And and the woman who directed it, she did a good job as far as the how it's produced and how it's directed. But I won't spoil anything. I should have Pet Sematary Bloodlines coming up this week, and I'm trying to think. There's probably some other movies I'm trying to get done. Trying to get that on the channel.
So I'm going to have some reviews, but getting prepared for this fest is going to be taking up a good chunk of time. But yeah, we'll have our spoiler room up, and I'll have a couple of reviews up before the end of the week. So, of horror films, I've been doing my 31 days of horror. I've been actually trying to go and just grab a random horror film from my shelf of my family video shelf of movies because I got so many up there I haven't watched yet. So I'll just grab one at random, and I grabbed one last night. If anyone's looking, I thought it was kind of fun, called Dead Ant. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's called Dead Ant. It stars
ant or an
ant, like an ant, like the insect ant.
Okay, yeah. So I was trying to.
Yep. Not the relative. No, it's not a zombie film. It's about Sean Astin's in it for most of the film, and Tom Arnold's in it, and it's about an 80s rock band trying to be relevant. So they're heading out to a music fest for their one last shot, but along the way they decide to take some peyote to go on a spiritual journey to write a song, but they gotta respect the land. Well, obviously, as you imagine, they don't end up respecting the land. Someone kills an ant, and suddenly the ants are attacking them. And every time they try to kill an ant gets the whole colony gets bigger, and they're.
It sounds crazy.
It is crazy. It is metal horror because it's involving this rock band, and I loved how it played out at the end. It's fun. Don't take it seriously because they aren't taking it seriously. And I thought it was a lot of fun. It was it was entertaining quite a bit better than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, if you're looking for like rock and roll horror, you could try check out Dead End.
Okay. All right, Mark, want to thank you once again joining the channel. I'm pretty sure I'll be back on the spoilers room pretty soon. Thank all
Absolutely.
you people in the chat for joining us tonight. Like I said before, if you haven't checked out Special Mark Productions, I will leave a link to his channel in the description box below. So once again, I want to thank everyone for watching. And once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as a horror miser, Monty G. And always remember that horror rules. You guys stay safe out there. Y'all take care.
Night.